All right, let's talk real quick about ship animation. Okay, so the ship animations. What we have here are 20 animations. First one, and I'll try and pull up the animation videos too. So first one, or we're calling it index 0 here. This one's going to be forward, and it's also used for idle. I'm not sure what font this is, but I kind of love it. Tesla font. Okay, so we have this. The second one, I'm gonna actually, yeah, let me just talk about this one for a second. It's gonna load all this up. It's gonna take a minute. Okay, so we have Unity loaded here, which just had a random crash, which that happens all the time in Unity. And here in Houdini, I also have this rendered. So the forward animation is just this simple bob up and down, and that can best be seen, I'll just let it play, on this side view. But really, the simulation, all it is tilting it up, and what we do is we loop back the animation in the game. So we use a ping pong animation control to get it to look that way. So here's the ship. Let me zoom in on it. So same kind of deal. Unity's camera, I can't rotate it the right way up. It's always been a sore spot for me. But this will have to do. So here's the controller. We have this custom controller. And so it's doing a ping pong. So it'll, as it animates, here's the frames. You can see there's pong and ping, and it's just set to move forward. So we can manipulate the animation and look at the other one, so we'll do that as well. But basically, um, that's how we're cheating this. Like we're using VAT animations. It's really short. It's only 2 seconds, and we're bouncing it back and forth. The weapons are also synchronizing with this, so yeah, they're not a part of the ship animation, but we attach it, and if you look carefully, there is no energy preservation. Like the movement of the ship isn't really affecting this weapon. It's just moving of its own accord. It has its own idle animation, and it's just being played alongside this idle animation of the ship. The reason why you're seeing this outline here is because this is a vector animated texture, so the actual model is stiff, and then we're deforming the vertices to animate it here. And that way we can get things like these vellum simulations and all kinds of just slight, subtle, wiggly detail. So that's mostly what we're leaning on, is just the physics aspect of the animations. And so that's, there wasn't a ton of manual stuff that went into this. Um, like the neck tilting to the side, that was just the physics sim and like all that stuff. But it worked out nicely, created a nice little effect. So he did tweak it a lot until it produced something nice, but that was the approach. So this is the forward one. I'll do the next one, which is move. I just can't keep track here of myself. So the next one is going to be move. Oh, it's going to be turn right. I want to say turn right and turn left. Just say 1, 2, and 3. 1 and 2. No, is it 3? That's 1 and 3. Yeah. Oh, that and symbol looks nuts at this font. That looks like an 8. All right, so 1 and 3. Just turn right and left. So the turn directions are virtually the same. So if we simulate it in here, it's going to take a second probably. Okay, this just finished processing, but there was one more note I wanted to mention on the forward. We double this up as the idle animation. So you can see how dramatic it is. Like it's bobbing up and down here. So we're looking at it from the top down, which I don't know how I got this camera to do that. So we're looking at it from the top down, and this is you can see things happening, because a lot of times with airships they just sit still, and it's not you can't even, it's not even animating, can't really tell what's going on. So this angle here, it's dramatized to be more like a ship bobbing in the water. And that allows it to kind of stick out. All right, so the turn animation, similarly pretty dramatic. It is just using a physics sim, so you can kind of see like these tugs, and it's just like dragging to the right. And then the other one is, I think that one's, yeah, that's right. The left one is the same, it's just going the opposite direction. And so this 1 and 3 animation are, it's just turning the ship 90 degrees. Now, because of the physics constraints that I'd set up, I didn't have to really do anything here. It just kind of tried to keep it together while it was being pulled. And you can see that actually falling apart in some of the places. Like if you look really close, and the soft constraints start to break down. You can see like right here. So the soft constraints require a lot of tuning, and they don't always work out great. Now on the large scale, it's fine usually. But frankly, I didn't really finish modeling this ship. And so like there's pieces that my skill level as a modeler at the time, this was like the first ship that I had ever done. I couldn't figure out how to like do certain shapes and stuff, so I just like, well, figured that out later. And yeah, so you can kind of see this is just floating in space, but it still has a physics constraint to this shoulder or elbow joint thing here. And then these guys here, these rudders, they're just sort of floating in space, but similarly have a soft constraint. So it's hard to come up with a soft constraint that looks good whenever you don't even have all the geo. But all of this here, all this connectivity is soft constraints. So some of them are done better than others. Like this guy was easier, but I think I had trouble with this because there's all these things attached to it, and I could only give it one parent, if I'm not mistaken. So one of these is actually, one of these rods, I don't remember which one, is a true parent. And it could even be this guy. Like I'm actually thinking it could be this guy as the parent of this shoulder here. And then these are like kind of fake. Like they're a child of this, and they just are meant to look like they're controlling it. But anywho, so the physics constraints did the work of animating it for me. So I just set up physics constraints and then moved the whole thing. And then you can see everything happening here. The Bellum simulation went to work on the flag, and then the rope, it gets its movement and stuff. So that's how I approach the turn animation. So it could be the same way where either you can go the physics route and set up all these constraints, which that's a whole other thing, simulating. Or yeah, you can kind of try and fake it. Like you could just rotate the entire ship 90 degrees as a start, and then start to like move the parts around. Like, okay, well maybe this wing can tilt up when it's turning, and maybe the head can turn in, or just depends on what model you're working with. And, yeah, so I think that it doesn't have to be super great of an animation because let me show you in Unity here. This is probably gonna mess up. Let's do it anyway. So we're gonna do turn left and move this battle cam. I don't remember where I left off. It's been some time since I've used Unity, and I'm trying to find this model. Okay, I'm not able to fix the camera, so something's up with the camera. I don't remember what I did, but this seems to work. Okay, so we'll just use this. Okay, so we have this. It's doing a turn left animation, and right now the controller here just is for testing, so it just stops. And so we turn left, and then what I do in the game, at least what I did over here whenever it was moving on the map, is it would turn left like this, and then we would reverse the animation. But as we reversed it, we would rotate the model. So we would rotate the whole root of it. And see if I can, controls are something I haven't messed with in so long. So like here's this rotation here. Find the right axis. Must be U. Yeah, so we'd rotate it like this in the middle of that reversal, and then that's how the ship would be facing when it was said and done. The server would use this Z field explicitly, so it'll actually synchronize with the server by the end of the animation. And the directions are typically pretty fixed, but it's not a guarantee. I want to say that collisions and stuff don't affect this. Like I'm pretty sure I didn't allow rotations to be interrupted in the on the physics engine. So that's mostly just to keep the calculations like really simple for myself. Um, so anyways, that's an aside, but that's kind of how we dealt with the turning animation. So hopefully that kind of relieves some pressure where like the turn animation doesn't have to be super super rich there, and all of this came from like the physics constraints. So, but I did try and make it really dramatic, like the wings letting them flop around and stuff um, was definitely desirable. So, all right, talking about dramatic animation. So the number two, which I know is out of order, but it's more complex because we use this for, well, we use all the turn animations for evasion, so I should say that as well. These are also used for evade, and it's all computed, so we know where an attack angle is coming from. And this is U-turn, is what it's been called in the code, which is also used for evade. It's kind of like the default evade animation, but there's a better name for it. It's called like, and I'm going to misspell this, Immelman turn. Immelman, oh gosh. Actually, I wasn't off there. Immelman. So there's an Immelman turn. And so this one, it looks like, see if I can bring it up real quick. So in the game, that's effectively what's happening because it's staying in the same uh, horizontal space, or yeah. So in the grid, it's staying in the same area, but we're just turning it around. So there's a lot of freedom here as to how you do that. Like there isn't a ton of constraint. So however you sort of imagine a ship rotating, I tried to have fun with this one here and made it go really crazy. So similar, seeing like the physics constraint on the standard weapon just went ballistic. Similarly with the left turn, right, where we turn left and then whenever we go to reverse it, we would rotate the entire ship's z-axis in the game engine to match its final location. So then we get the expected result. When we do the U-turn, we would do something similar, except it's going to be a different transformation. So whenever we do U-turn here, we would be rotating the ship around like on a different axis. Let's see, which axis is it? Like this maybe? So we'd be flipping this around as that animation is playing and unrolling. And it's hard to simulate that while, like I can hit the button and try to make it work out, but as you can see, these controls aren't exactly meant for that. They're just meant to test animations. So and it can like, it'll like reverse it. Um, and so we have to like fight against that and figure out, all right, how do how do we roll this ship over and then maybe roll this direction too, and then it ends up at 180, and then we can just kind of get rid of all of this and just fix the Z rotation to be, what was that, 270, negative 2790, 360 is full way around. I thought it was just like 180, right? 520. Yeah, 180 should do. Yeah, I overthought it. Okay, so yeah, so then we want to end up facing this way. So that's kind of the ultimate goal of that U-turn. Is it's not actually a U-turn. It's more of just a flip. And I think in the server code we call it a straight flip. But this, I don't know, whatever the concept of U-turn stuck. So that in the animation space, that's what it's named. But it can be it's a misnomer for sure. So just explaining that away, like it's not an actual U-turn, so you're not making like this big U arc, and because since it's turn-based, the positions are everything. You can't just like move into a different slot. Like you have to stay where you are when you're making your motion. It has to fit in with the server data. I won't simulate it here because I've got it in Unity, so we'll just talk about it here, unless it makes sense. Okay, and these are both used for evade, and what I mean by evade is when the ship is shot at, depending on the angle that it approaches. So if you have an ordnance evade, and so if it hits dead on, or rather if it doesn't hit dead on, so we're playing that, and if you pay close attention, it still clips with the ship, and there's different kinds of projectiles, like it's dynamic, right? So they could get hit with this big old cannonball, laser beam, whatever. And we will, where's that button to invoke? Yeah, so we just kind of do the best we can. Like it's not gonna be flawless. I think that's okay. Like, so we're gonna be doing things like this, where there'll be some object flying at the ship, and we just play this animation like juke, even though it just like really would have devastated the hull. Um, and that's kind of the whole purpose. Oh, I can move this. Oh, okay, that's nice. I've forgotten how to use my own tools. What else is there? Oh, yes, let's look at the other evade. So like from the right side. So say, I think starboard will trigger one of them. Yeah. So again, that flew straight through it, but it plays the animation to show that it's dodging. And then the character isn't showing up in this test view for some reason. I don't know what happened or why that's broken, but yeah, the character shows up. So there's like a lot of like noise that happens um, to try and like kind of sell that animation and get it to go. Changes theme something else. Okay. All right. So that's what I mean by evade and how it'll be used. So it's the same exact animation, but we're using it for different purposes. All right. Next set of animations is bump. All right. So if we go animations 4 through 7. 7 looks funky, but it is, so bump animations. So what these are our first kinds of hits, but there's 3 levels of hits. You have bump, you have hit, and you have sync. Sync is the most sophisticated because it actually includes mesh destruction, or, it's more than just regular deformation. It's actual destruction, or we have to, in Houdini it's RBD specifically, but in Unreal there is a tool that we're going to mess around with where we might be able to do it first class in there, which could be cool. Like, it could be nice. Like, maybe we'll be able to get higher quality effects there. We'll see. All right, so bump. Bump is only used for collisions, and that's when, and we haven't really addressed this yet, but there's obstacles in the level, like things that you can bump into, buildings and junk. So when you hit one of those, you fly through one, it would do a similar animation that I just showed with the evade or getting hit, except it would be a bump. So a bump would be that obstacle getting pretty much annihilated, like it would get destroyed, and the ship would receive a bump, and so it would get hit with a bump animation. Now, there's one exception to this, and the exception is that if the ship, because getting bumped can damage the ship. So like if the ship actually takes a fatal damage, then it'll turn into a sync animation. But for the most part, um, collisions shouldn't be super fatal. Like, I say that now, we'll find out what that actually turns into in gameplay. So collisions with other ships, collisions with obstacles, that's what I mean here by collisions, and that's what the bump animation's for. So now we only have 4 bump angles, even though there's actually, is that right? Yes, that is correct. Okay, we have 4 bump angles, and because I was trying to cut down on the number of animations, and I already had, we already have 20, so there's that. Now, bump is also used as recoil, and so what I mean by recoil is when a weapon is fired. So let me see if I have one of those. Let's try to see recoil. So I think they have launch ordnance here. Oh, yeah, it looks like it glitches like crazy. No, actually, that's not a glitch. That's supposed to be what it is. Okay, so we're firing this weapon. Okay, it's really subtle. I'll try and draw attention to it. Oh my gosh, that camera driving me nuts. It's like too much rattle. I feel like this is not the latest version of the game. Like, I mean, it was not doing a lot of this stuff. Like the camera's all messed up. I had fixed all of this. I must not have the latest version of the code, which is like so many months old that I don't even remember if I saved or something, I guess, okay, whatever. Try and move on. It's hard to have spent so much time working on this and then it not be in the state that I left it. Uh, okay, so I'm gonna focus on this one because it doesn't have the camera stuff and we're trying to see that animation. All right, so I'm not sure if you notice, and we'll play it in Houdini, but it's playing the forward bump animation. So we'll go in Houdini and let's find animation 4 here. Let's go 4. Let's simulate it. And so I'm going to let this play in slow-mo, but you can see how it's just rocking the shoulders a little bit. It rocks the flag a little bit. You can see some of these things flying forward here. And it's just really subtle, right? Like it's not super heavy. If you look at the code in the simulation for Houdini, you'll see that it's basically the same as Hit. It's just less. It's just using less kinetic force. So all it does is it kind of rocks the wings a little bit. And it creates this little shockwave effect. So it's a lot easier to see in here because there's no noise from the engine, like with the background and all that stuff. We need all of these like effects and junk to really make it feel more anime-like or like action-packed. Because by itself, it's kind of boring. But whenever you have it all smashed together, it feels better. So yeah, we're playing that bump animation, and I guess I can see. Actually, I have Test Manager here. Let me click on. I forgot about the locked inspector. We can look at the controller and see that. So right now, what animation are we playing? Does it tell me? It doesn't say. It says, oh yeah, it does. Move forward. Okay, so then if I come down here, oh yeah, I'll lock this guy, and then we can click on this guy over here. All right, cool. So now we can see this move forward. So if we do launch ordnance, bump front is played, and it reverses it, and it goes back to move forward. And that's sort of how this whole sequence thing is working out. All right, what's next here? All the bumps are going to be the same way, right? We're just changing the angle. So if we switch to like a different attack angle, like from the side, starboard, and we run that, um, it'll fire it from that angle, which is, it may not make sense here because the graphics aren't matching, but like you couldn't have, like, weapons don't always fire forward. They can fire in different directions, and so depending on the direction they fire, we support that too. So it just sort of rocks the ship, and in this case, I think it's just this gets like banged against the ship. You can kind of see it rattle there, and that's what it does. But this side doesn't. So you can see how this one barely moves at all. It does move, but it's not as hard as this side because this is firing from the right. So there's just these subtleties in the animation, and I leaned heavily on the physics constraints to like do it for me, where I wanted some elements of realism, but not so much that it was like not behaving like an organic animal. But it also needed to be kind of dramatic, so I kind of pumped up the physics effects where even just firing off a cannon like rocks the whole ship, and that's probably not accurate in real life, but I don't really care. I just wanted it to look fun. So there's that. Okay, so there's the bump animations. Next is okay. Next technically is sync, but we're going to talk out of order here again. So we're going to talk about hit animations, which are 12 through 19. So 12 through 19 are hit, and I already said that. And this one is very obviously for hit. Now it can be mixed with destruction. And so how does that work? So component destruction specifically. So component destruction is not the ship, it's parts on the ship. And let's see, it's ordnance hit. I think right now these will simulate the destruction of the armor. I don't have anything simulating the destruction of these weapons yet, but that's okay. And for that, we're going to want to look at this guy. Maybe we want to just do both. All right, so let's get hit from the front. So the idea from getting hit in the front is you're getting hit with something big, and it knocks the ship. So you see how it just like it hits it in the front, and so if the ship were in water, it would tilt back because of the buoyancy. So like this bouncing animation, that's kind of what we're going with there. So it's still just doing this like little bouncy animation here, and when the ship is struck, that's the wrong button. That's when the ship is struck, it just tilts in the opposite direction. It's like it wouldn't tilt down because if it tilted down, it would sink. It can tilt down, but I don't know. I decided to have it tilt up because I thought it made more sense. So you could have it tilt down the other direction, and I think that could still accomplish the same effect. But really, you just want to have some kind of really obvious detection that it was hit, because like there is a mode like this here. So see from the top, it needs to be obvious that something happened, because there's a mode in XCOM and other like games that do this that have these crazy camera effects. Some people hate them. Like I love these like cinematic effects, but some people really dislike them and they want to turn it off. So for those people, if you look on the left here, this is what they're gonna see. Well, not exactly. We're gonna get rid of like the speed lines and stuff and all of that junk. Um, but they're not gonna see the camera angle and stuff. They're just gonna see this like top-down thing. And so we would have it's ideal to have something like this so that we can just use the same animation and it plays well for both effects. And so it has that nice like crazy anime thing, and then also, but it still works for just standing alone on its own. So that's why it tilts up like that. I like there's some aspects of realism like kinetic force. When it hits something, it makes it move. Yes. Does something that small cause a giant ship to move like that? Probably not. I don't think so. It'll probably break through the hull if anything, especially being nails, right? Like these are supposed to be, originally it's supposed to be a railgun, and you would think that it would go through the ship, but it's firing off these nails. It's probably better named nail gun, but whatever. This is the fantasy world we've landed ourselves in, and so yeah, it just tilts the ship back. Same thing for other angles. It's going to tilt in the opposite direction, so stern being the back of the ship. And this is the wrong one. It's going to tilt it forward. So it hits it in the back and it pushes it forward. Same thing with the side. So we have all 8 angles here. And then there's ones in between too. So the hit ones, we put the little extra effort in to do the diagonal angles because the armor of the ship has 8 angles. We want I don't know, we just want like very specific cues to be able to tell like, all right, you were hit at this specific angle, and wow, this is all messed up. I think the camera, this definitely is an older version of the code, because I remember this problem. Yeah, only half of the ship camera angles would work, and I remember fixing that. There's just a lot of little bugs in here that have been fixed already. Since it's the Unity version, I don't want to spend a ton of time like actually trying to fix this and working on it anymore, but it's useful for a reference. Yeah, the camera angle jarriness is just like nuts. It is not supposed to jar that much. Gosh. Okay, so yeah, so basically, hopefully this gives the right idea that, yeah, you can, like I have recordings where this is right. Anyways, all these different angles here, so you can kind of just imagine like, okay, it gets hit, and it's going to rock the ship, and what that does to everything else. And so like I would start, if you're going to do it by hand, I would start with moving just the whole ship in that general direction of the hit, and then like tilting it, rotating it that way, and then imagining kind of like what happens to the rest of the parts when that rotation happens, and just move things around. And I'm sure that that'll turn out pretty good. Especially considering the angles that we're looking at, like it won't be like people can't manually control the ship around, so it's all turn based. So we can script control this stuff. All right, so that's all the hits. I could roll through them all. I have a video that does it better and it doesn't have these glitches with the shake. So I think finding that video is better than trying to replay all of it here. All right, so the hit animations, so it's about component destruction. All those fragments you saw flying around, that was this, these are, actually, oh, let it move it, cool. Yeah, so this is armor. And so people can customize their ship and have different armor. This is wood. There is other kinds, and they fit to the ship. I've flirted with making like multiple actual layers, but I think what I'll do is like if there's multiple layers, it'll just kind of magically come back, even though you just blew it off. So yeah, this is what gets destroyed. I might even be able to play an animation on that directly, but anyways, that's what's happening there. Is if there's a component that gets destroyed, it synchronizes with the ship destruction animation, and it's the same frame count and everything, 120. So it was just really easy for me to do with a controller like this. Okay, let's go back to Photoshop to think through this. So it's component destruction. Now, yeah, hit animation could be used for like a more severe bump. I've thought of that too, where like if two ships of a different size or like a building that's too big or something, so I was kind of imagining this could be used as a more severe bump. For now, that's just not what we're doing, but we can definitely reuse this animation for even more cases that we're not using. Okay, now for the most complicated one, 8 through 11 is sync. This one is complicated because of the mesh destruction and the way the animation works. And it could just be like a limit of my skill and ability. Uh, Probably that always gets in the way a little bit, but we'll move on from that and just show the destruction. Evade, where is it? Sync, okay, yeah, here we go. This one was a lot of fun. So you can sync a ship, and of course the shader's messed up. Let's see if I can fix that. I hope it works. That's annoying. I can probably just pull up the other videos if it's gonna act up, yes. Oh wow, the hover works on this? Okay. Waiting for the stuff to spawn. There it goes. So the guns appear. It does like a lazy load. Yeah, this doesn't make sense. 500 text elements. What text? Alright, so text manager. Let's go to sync from the front. And looks like it still is acting whack. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what the heck's wrong with this project. So what you're looking at, and I'll explain it and then we'll show it in Houdini. I'll let us simulate in Houdini real quick. Let's do 8. In a nutshell, to get this to work, you need two models. Oh good, it actually shows it right away. So here is the base model. So this is using your typical animation that we've been using. Now we do export VAT, but before that, you have to think about like what an animation is, especially in Houdini. It's just moving the verts around. And so I believe this is called just mesh deform, right? The animation is just moving the verts, and it's making it's like a flip book basically, right? Like just like 2D animation where you have sprites and then you show a new sprite, and doing it in rapid succession creates the animation. So 3D is no different. You have verts, and you just move them around slightly, and the fidelity of that animation is just how small is the movement in between each frame, and you get more smooth effects. So we could actually make it more cartoony by making these snap more or skipping frames, so where it's like ta 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 ta. And so that's an option as well. Something I thought about, like if we ever managed to make it to mobile or like smaller spaces, is we would just cut down the quality on this and it would maybe give it even a more charming effect. But this is what we got right now, is this like realistic physics thing. So this is playing for just one of the models. And it's what you're seeing in Unity is this animation is playing just fine in the base model. Now something is wrong with this code, and it's supposed to be playing the mesh destruction here, but you can see the material's messed up. And it actually needs a different calculation. So the RBD destruction, it needs to be a different model because of, and I can show why. It took me a really long time to understand this. Like I just did not grasp it for so long. Can I do this one? Yeah, okay. So we need this to be different because it's a, can I see the break? Oh yeah, let's look at this guy. This is different geometry. So in order to make this destructive effect, you need different geometry. So this inside face here doesn't exist on the original model. Like the original model doesn't have an interior for all these parts. Like we had to make these, create new geo to then throw these around in a breaking animation. So let me see if I can apply force, destruct sync front. So I can probably look at it here and see it break. Yeah, because this is after the simulation happens. So that's all we're doing is we're taking it, we break into pieces, and then we shove it into itself. Like we just push it backwards because the force is coming from this direction. And we also apply a force to the body. And what's cool about this is the pieces will bounce off of the hull of the ship and stuff. It's really, really neat. So I love it. Like it's super, super awesome. And it what's really cool is like the simulation is affected, like the vellum simulation is even affected by these chunks flying around. Like it affects the vellum simulation. So doing it in Houdini was a lot of fun. Like to just be able to mess with all of this and learn all these techniques. And I didn't really understand how destruction worked. I thought somehow magically you could just split a mesh and it would automatically create these inside faces, but it doesn't. This is actually a completely different model to get this to work. So that's why in Unity we had two models, and also why this is, I guess, presumably messed up. So yeah, so we reverse the sync. It's also, this one animation here seems to also be adding in a like a Z depth drop, like it's dropping it down. So we can do sync left. Yeah, it's too bad that these don't work. They're really charming in here. But you can see something happening here that's interesting. This uh, component in here is getting thrown around. So if I do sync left, you can see the component just like flies off the ship. And so what we could do, and what I'd plan to do, is someday just have that get destroyed too. But for cheapness and to just kind of move forward, because we've already spent a lot of time on this kind of stuff, I was just going to have it like kind of spinning out, like rotating, like in the game engine, or not the game engine, sorry, in Unity. Uh, Not to be confused with our actual headless game engine. That's what I'm trying to say. The component doesn't exist in space in our game engine. It's just a visual representation here. Okay, so that's the destruction animations, and like how those work. You can probably completely change that whole approach in Unreal now. Like I imagine we don't need to do all of this. One, because we're not using vector animated textures, so that simplifies things. And then secondly, Unreal has their own mesh destruction systems that I think we should try to lean on, and that should simplify our workflow. And we could probably achieve even more dynamic effects, because this is the drawback of doing it this way. As neat as it is, it's always the same animation. So we can make it feel different by switching the camera angle, changing the color of the ship. It's a different weapon this time, destroying it from the front. It's a different character flying the ship, so it'll feel different. The different theme colors and the speed lines, but it's still the same core VAT animation that's identical every single time. The flag is always going to fly up that way. The ropes are always going to snap like that. The head is always going to break off in these exact pieces. And true, we could run different simulations, but that's, you know, it takes more time, especially the complexity of it all. And it did set it up to where we could support that. It's just, yeah, we just want one for now, and then maybe later is something we can come back to and make better. But yeah, so that's the destruction animation. So that's all our animations. I hope that that's clear. I know it's a lot. Like this is really hard to approach, but we can pretty much ignore sync unless yeah, something I want to work on right now. But I would say that the forward one, it should be the easiest one. It just bobs up and down or back and forth. And a kind of rotation. Think rotations. Even though it says forward, you're rotating the ship. Turn is also rotation key. You're turning the thing 90 degrees left or right. This U-turn here is a lot of creative space. It's not really U-turn, it's really more of an implement, but you can, do something wacky and then remember that whatever you do, we're going to rotate it anyways using the code. So then, it kind of gives you some freedom there. Bump is the same as hit, just a lot weaker, and we don't do 8 of them because they're so uninteresting, respectively, to the hit that we only are doing 4. So we can kind of like average out. All right, well, this was hit and diagonal front. We'll just treat it like a front bump. This was hit like diagonal side. We'll just treat it like a side bump. So programmatically, we'll decide which is the best bump to play. While the hit animations are much more specific, and we anticipate that this is where a lot of the animation time, viewing time will be. So we gave it more oomph, where we will actually animate 8 different hit angles. But it's the same kind of algorithm for each one. So once you do one of these bumps or one of these hits, then it's kind of the same workflow each time. Like you're going to do a rotation on the ship and make it dramatic, and then you move all the parts around and have them kind of, flail a little bit or look like something is wrong. So yeah, that's all our animation.